Night falls in the forest, the darkness binding and then blinding in its sight of the abyss. The only warmth of companionship on the hollow night landscape were shadows, lightly touching other shadows' hands. Suddenly, the night's caress of silence, all interrupted by a Byronic figure, a bravado and favoured knight, whom is always nostalgic for his own triumphant time that hasn't quite ended yet. He was heaven-sent, yet hell-bent on his mission, to cease the unnatural. Piercing the veil of mist was a demented and odious creature. The knight summoned his sword and began to... Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and to the problem goblins and merry fairies. I've gathered all of you fictional characters today, from Alice in Wonderland all the way down to Zeus from Greek mythology, to examine some unexpected news. A new research article published in a science journal is turning over a new page, both metaphorically and literally. The research has found that narratives exert a powerful influence on human thoughts and behaviour. They constitute memory, shape emotions, cue heuristics, and biases in judgment, and may even affect personal identity. Philosophy tested the way we think, psychology measured the way we think, and now narratives are also reportedly changing the way we think. However, unlike the two formers, narrative tropes and structures have rarely been altered since their creation. The cycle of the hero's journey just keeps on turning. The question spawned from this is, what exactly are these outdated narrative tropes teaching us? And how can we update narrative structures to reflect the real world better? In today's lesson, we'll be focusing on the walls that words built, in narrative's false idolization of good versus evil. For instance, that short extract that was viewed at the start of the lecture illustrates how narrative's depictions of good versus evil is done without nuance and resembles a black and white fallacy. Neither the knight or the creature was ever labelled as a hero or villain. The descriptions did not detail ideology or motivations, yet chances are that your moral taste buds naturally favoured the flavour of the knight's description over the creature's, perceiving him as a literal hero in shining armour. The mind's eye fails to see through the veil of superficialities of appearance. This is due to how narratives have trained us in putting a face to the untangible, whether it be Voldemort's demented nose or Captain Hook's titular rusty old hook. Narratives seem to equivalate corporeal ugliness and external deformities with internal vindictiveness and maliciousness. Not only is this insensitive, but it distorts the view of how evil manifests, depicting that evil is outside the body rather than developing inside the mind. Imagine the effect this has on the person who actually falls prey to Captain Hook's egoism or Voldemort's eugenic ideologies. If they become unsure whether their new beliefs are actually right and wrong, they may validate it by observing the looking glass, and when they see none of these narrative tropes of evil physical features reflected back, they will presume that all is well, despite their internal beliefs resembling something rather wrong. Furthermore, narrative's poor simplistic depictions of good versus evil doesn't only cause us to misread ourselves, but those around us too. Think what narratives are teaching us by using protagonists and antagonists. The reader is always encouraged to sympathise with the brave heroics of the protagonist, while encouraged to boo the antagonist. The problem lies in the walls this mentality builds, as the classical story structure is teaching us to always associate ourselves with the protagonist and those who disagree with us as a simplistic, monstrous antagonist. This decays communication when you view those who are opposite to you as the villain to your hero, rather than a set of differing opinions. Disagreements in the real world are not as polar as black and white. The antidote is for narratives to depict conflict as more of a yin and yang, differenting yet balancing each other out. Nowadays, divisions are rampant. Varying religion and politics are islands apart. It's time to look beyond narrative tropes of good and evil, and accept differences without labelling them as divisions. We are all just stories in the end. We tell stories of our past as anecdotes. We plan our future as something waiting to be told. Think about how your story is going to be told. Will it be full of protagonists who are always righteous, and the people who are different to you are labelled as antagonists? Or will it be something bigger, if not for yourself, but for your children and a better future?